Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the Hurricane Awareness Tour here for 2023. We're at Lakefront Airport in New Orleans, Louisiana. We've got a great turnout here. We got the Hurricane Hunter aircraft. We got other partners here with us to raise awareness that hurricane season is just a little less than a month away here in the Atlantic Basin. What we want to talk about today is the fact that water is the biggest hazard that kills the most people in tropical storms and hurricanes in the United States. Wind gets a lot of the attention, but water, the combined effects of freshwater flooding from heavy rainfall, storm surge, surf and rip currents combined to kill about 90% of people in the United States from tropical storms and hurricanes. So what we want to do today is talk to people involved in different parts of the Weather Service and Coast Guard mission that are involved in forecasting those water hazards and responding to them as well. So I'm going to first start off with Stephen Kanarick, who's a lead forecaster at the National Hurricane Center's Tropical Analysis and Forecast Branch, who forecasts marine hazards associated with tropical storms and hurricanes and every day of the year. And I want to have Stephen talk a little bit about some of the marine dangers that are associated with tropical storms and hurricanes.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. So a lot of times we talk about the hazards associated with hurricanes as they're moving onshore, but there's plenty of water-related hazards that happen well before the hurricane has hit shore. And things that I do at the Tropical Analysis and Forecast Branch are forecast the wave conditions as well as the winds associated with a tropical storm or hurricane that pose a lot of hazards to mariners and boaters. As the storm gets closer to shore, things like rip currents can be very deadly and can occur hundreds or even thousands of miles away from the center of the hurricane.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. It's really important to note that even for storms that are well off the east coast of the United States, thousands of miles away, you can still have dangerous surf conditions on an otherwise, nice beach day. So you always want to pay attention to any warnings that are there at the beach. Pay attention to lifeguards and any warnings about being safe in the water. So moving from marine hazards to rainfall, I have Alex Lamers, who's the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service's Weather Prediction Center up in College Park, Maryland. And they're responsible for rainfall and flash flood forecasting for the entire United States. So I'll ask Alex to talk a little bit about the rainfall and flooding hazards that we've seen associated with hurricanes recently.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mike. I won't bury the lead here. I think in the last 10 years, we've seen that rainfall-induced flooding is actually the deadliest tropical cyclone-related hazard in the United States. So really important for people to understand the dangers posed by rainfall from tropical cyclones, and it's not just a coastal hazard. It can extend hundreds of miles inland.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. I think the other thing to point out is that it doesn't matter how strong the storm is, really. It's the motion of the storm, how hard, how heavy, how quickly the rainfall falls out of the storm that determines the flash flood risk.
Yeah, exactly. Those rainfall rates are really important, and where those heavy and intense rainfall rates can be sustained for a very long duration, for events like Hurricane Harvey, where we saw these really intense bands of rain just line up for hour after hour after hour, and that leads to these catastrophic impacts that we sometimes see from rainfall. So we're just trying to do everything we can to get people to understand the dangers from that and adequately prepare with the best possible forecasts, like the excessive rainfall outlook and all the rainfall information that is available directly on the Hurricane Center website, hurricanes.gov.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And for your local rainfall impacts, you can go to weather.gov and see the flash flood watches and warnings that are in effect for your area. So moving from rainfall over to storm surge, which historically has had the highest potential to kill the most number of people in a single day in a hurricane hazard, like we've seen in hurricanes like Katrina or even Hurricane Ian last year that hit Southwest Florida. I've got Cody Fritz, who's the team lead of the National Hurricane Center Storm Surge Unit, to talk a little bit about that hazard. Cody?
Yeah, that's right, Mike. So historically, storm surge has been the leading cause of death as it relates to tropical cyclones, certainly making landfall along the coastline. Storm surge, as you've seen with like Hurricane Ian in past seasons, can be very, very deadly and destructive. In fact, it can not only just occur at the coastline, but can occur well inland along those rivers and estuaries and bays.
Yeah, and it's important to point out, too, that most of the evacuation decisions that are made in the United States for hurricanes are driven by the storm surge hazard.
That's exactly right. So all those evacuation zones, when we talk about Know Your Zone, a lot of those zones are constructed and built as it relates to those storm surge risk maps that we've created based on hypothetical scenarios and whatnot. But really, those risk maps go into creating those hurricane evacuation zones, and basically that's what you use whenever it comes to a hurricane making landfall.
Yeah, so it's important to know if you live in a storm surge evacuation zone, because that really forms the basis of your entire hurricane plan. So thanks, Cody. Now I'm going to switch over to Lieutenant Commander Tuo from the U.S. Coast Guard sector here in New Orleans, and she's going to talk a little bit about the Coast Guard's role in response and recovery in the aftermath of the water hazards and just hurricane hazards in general.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mike. So right now I'm standing in front of one of our shallow water response crafts. Our expert team is back there, my great colleagues, so thank you guys for that. But so this is one of the many things things that we bring to bear in terms of hurricane response. We've got these shallow water response crafts, we've got helicopters, we've got big boats, patrol boats, things like that. And that's all of us just trying to prioritize our top mission, which is search and rescue after a hurricane comes through. Additional missions that we also run is pollution response. Oftentimes, it's not just people that are affected. Also, we have like oil rigs or pipelines that are affected. So that's one of our missions also, in addition to making sure that our ports remain as open as possible. Obviously, we have to close the port sometimes when the hurricane's rolling through. And what we often do is we set up vessel queuing practices, and we work closely with partners like the Army Corps of Engineers, CPRA, other local folks to make sure that our waterways are clear so that commerce can be resumed and that the waterways are safe for people. So thank you for the chance to talk, Mike.
Thanks, Lieutenant Commander Tuo. So thanks. We've heard from several National Weather Service colleagues, our great partners at the Coast Guard, talking about the water hazards, which are the deadliest hazards associated with tropical storms and hurricanes, how we can protect ourselves from them, and how the response and recovery is handled in their aftermath. So thanks for joining us here at the Hurricane Awareness Tour, Day 2 in New Orleans. We'll be in Jackson, Mississippi tomorrow for Day 3, so we'll look for you there. This is Mike Brennan from the National Hurricane Center in New Orleans.